1,000 UFO sightings reported around the world every month. 90% of these sightings can be explained, but 10% cannot. Officially and unofficially, the U.S. military has been investigating UFOs since 1947. Their top secret goal is to find out what's behind these unexplained sightings. The Pentagon classifies them as unusual airborne anomalies, but a better term is X-Files. Join us as we explore these unsolved cases, UFO incidents that baffle even the U.S. military. This is Mack Maloney's Military X-Files. And now, here's Mack Maloney.
Well, welcome to a very special edition of Mack Maloney's Military X-Files. This is Commander Cobra speaking for Mack Maloney and the gang. Let me read to you, after I open the sealed orders that Mack has sent to me regarding what is going on tonight. With me is Steve Switchblade Ward, and the orders read as such. CC, switch. Break off, main formation. JJ and I are on a secret mission. Complete show. Try not to break anything too expensive. Mack sends. Switch.
Yes.
You have any illumination, any more background on what's going on here with the secret mission and what happened? You know, we show up to do the show. He's not here. JJ's not here. It's just you and I. Any word?
As you alluded to, it doesn't at this point. It doesn't seem like Mack's show because usually it's 20 or 30 minutes in just to do the intro. So
yes,
that was that was a bit abbreviated.
But let us play proper honors to the Mack Maloney methodology here. And first of all, Commander Cobra talking to you from the compound, which used to be considered a bunker, but for tax purposes, I have changed it over to a compound in the great state of Maine in the Northern Territories of New England. I'm speaking with Steve Switchblade Ward, longtime known as the national correspondent for this show, an investigative reporter and author in his own right in the paranormal world, a military veteran. And of course, Steve, let's knock it out of the park early for those that want to know, what did you have in preparation in the culinary arts for tonight?
I had 3 pieces of bacon, 1 scrambled egg with shredded cheese, and 2 pieces of toast. Buttered.
What type of toast?
Hot black coffee.
What type of toast?
What type of bread, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. It was, I think it's some kind of like wheat bread or something like that. Mm-hmm. You know, excellent. I don't pay much attention. It's bread, you know.
Bread. Okay. Well, you're not a connoisseur in the various breads.
I'm not a connoisseur at all.
For our guests that are waiting to come on air, I'm sure that there is in the virtual green room some snickering going on with this discussion, and maybe we at some point can explain to them the importance of getting that piece of information out onto the airwaves early on. Folks, we're very fortunate tonight to have one guest that you know very well because he appears on Mack Maloney's Military X-Files frequently and is a very, very good friend of all of us and on the show. But 2 of the people that you do kind of know about in using Mack's words, as you have often heard us speak, especially when Mack talks about it in very loving terms, he refers to Ross Sharp and those mad Englishmen that are rebuilding in the UK, a fighter bomber that is known as the Mosquito. And we have talked about this in the past, and we have had updates on it in the past. But tonight we're very fortunate to have 2 key members of the leadership and good friends of mine as well to come speak to us. So let me get down the roll call here so that we can get this thing into the air and start doing the formation routine. John Lilley, he is the directing manager, chairman of the People's Mosquito. John, good evening and welcome to Mack Maloney's Military X-File.
Oh, good evening. And how are you?
Excellent, sir. It is wonderful to have you here, and it's been a while since we've chatted on air to talk about TPM and all the great things that are going on. Also with us is Wing Commander Bill Ramsey. Bill is the Director of Operations. He is one of the most distinguished pilots I know of, and has an incredible flight resume, which includes tours in the Vulcan bomber, flying fast jets, as it's referred to in the RAF, and he was a leader of the Red Arrows. Bill, good evening, and welcome to Mack Maloney's Military X-Files.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks very much for having me along. By the way, in preparation, I also had a pre-flight meal of bacon and coffee.
Oh, excellent. Now, we're practically related at this point. See, we're showing that the cousins in the colony are doing very well. And I should note that Bill and John obviously are coming to us from the UK. And Ross is in another part of New England. He's in Massachusetts. And we'll be talking to him in a second. And I omitted to bring up the fact that Switch is up there in the great state of Michigan, in the Battle Creek area of Michigan. The land of flakes, as Mac likes to say.
That's
With
right.
that said, go ahead. I'm sorry, Bill.
In the summertime, we have to keep our windows shut because the snap, crackle, pop is so loud.
Yeah, well, especially after something like rain. You have to be very cautious about that.
Absolutely.
Ross Sharp.
Yes, sir.
Director of Engineering for TPM. Longtime command presence here on Mack Maloney's Military X-Files. Good evening, sir, and welcome, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Commander. And in full culinary disclosure mode, I too had a pre-flight meal. There were 3 fried eggs and some baked beans. You will note that no bacon was harmed during the making of that culinary exercise.
Well, we'll know that Zeppelin will be very, very happy to hear that. And for John and Bill, that Zeppelin is the new addition to the Commander Cobra squadron here, and he is my baby pig that has been with us now for 4 months. No comment. I noticed the very
talk about the ham.
The very classy silence as they are.
Just be careful. Don't get Ross Sharp talking about gerbils.
Oh yes, gerbil and chips. That's an in-joke, gentlemen.
Yes, it sounds like maybe we'll have a chance to get to it. Well, one thing I do want to, before we dive into the show proper here, is that I wanted to bring up the fact that at the time that we're doing the show is very close to the passing and interment of Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. To me, I think one of the classiest folks that great warrior, as far as I'm concerned, outstanding husband and father from everything that I know, no details beyond what I had seen. But talk about a member of the greatest generation, someone who walked it and talked it, as we would say here in the colonies, very, very clearly. And he never really grabbed a lot of fanfare, but he had, to me, incredibly important impact to everything that to his people and to the crown. So I really wanted to just take a note in honoring the fact that I have 3 members, 3 subjects, I would believe is the proper way to say it. And I want to get that note.
Thanks, Commander. That's really kind. You're right that Prince Philip, I think, played a role in our monarchy, which is maybe not understood, but he, in the end, he was a father and a husband to our Queen, so he was behind her, all the way for all those years. So, and a tremendous guy in his own right.
Yeah, absolutely. I stagger when you find out some of the details of things that he did in combat operations, and then in his service as a member of the royal family, and I think a textbook way of executing the responsibilities and role in a very complex world. I think was that kind of guy.
I think, Commander, one of the unsung episodes of his naval career was when he literally saved the ship. HMS Wallace, where he was first lieutenant, XO in U.S. naval terms, was off Sicily and was being bombed at night by a series of German aircraft, I think Ju-88s. And there had been several near misses, and obviously the ship was about to be hit for 6. And prior to the last run, Prince Philip and the captain worked something out, and they quickly assembled a wooden raft on deck with a couple of smoke floats at either end and threw it overboard. And when it hit the water, the smoke floats ignited and sputtered and gave off flames and masses of smoke. And the ship sprinted away from that and then went dead in the water. And lo and behold, the JOH-8 came back and bombed the raft. And it was said afterwards that undoubtedly Prince Philip's quick thinking and actions saved the ship and those on board.
Tremendous story, and it doesn't surprise me in the least that it's attributed to him. Just the ways that people have spoke about him in service with him, and I'm going to extend that to the rest of his son and to his grandsons. Their time in the military. A few people over the years that I have met that had served with them spoke the same way. So he obviously made sure that was instilled in them when they put the uniform on. So tremendous. Switching slightly off gear here and into it, John, a lot of people don't know much beyond the Mad Englishman moniker that has been placed on you by Mack. What exactly we're doing with this Mosquito project. I mean, there's a million stories behind what is going on with this project, and to me, it absolutely is joyful to me. The kinds of people that are getting involved, but you have a unique. You are the reason that we're all together working so hard on this and have had the success to date. Give a short intro to the folks. What drove you to do this, and how you sent off the first Twitter message, and what happened with that little spark?
Well, I guess it follows on from talking about His Royal Highness Prince Philip, and I guess I hope, and I speak for myself, but I do know it because I see it in my colleagues in Ross and Bill and all the guys involved in the team. We have this British spirit of that we will get something done. We will achieve, we will endure. And I guess the spirit as well that comes out of the Royal Air Force, which Bill could probably talk to, is that, and particularly about the Mosquito aircraft itself when it was operated, is, when people say it's impossible, we have this attitude, well, give me 24 hours and I'll deliver it. So we don't accept things are impossible. And that's something I've been brought up with from my forefather, also served in the military in the British Army as well, and also my relatives that served in the armed forces in World War II. And, again, that story that Ross has eloquently talked about there, where the Prince's quick thinking, he didn't accept their fate. He didn't accept it. So that has been part of my guiding principle, and I guess it's a bit of a psyche that, not just me, but also obviously you guys as well over there in the United States. We don't accept we can't get things done. There is an answer. You might not know it today, but we'll find it out tomorrow. And it's that spirit of never giving up, isn't it, I think? So that drove me. And also as well, what drove me was that this aircraft, when we come back to it, became the first multi-role combat aircraft. And these are sort of terms that, you, Commander, will know about when people talk about things like the F-18 Hornet, F-16, our Tornado aircraft, fighter bomber, which Bill flew. The Mosquito, wasn't designed that way, but it nurtured in that way as well. And it was also using ingenuity of engineering, something, again, Prince Philip drove. And one of the things that he really got behind engineering and innovation. And the fact there was a quote tonight in British television, he said, if God did not invent it, then an engineer did. So, that stuck with me tonight before we came on the show, because I think we all can appreciate that one. So that was my driving force, and also because this aircraft, apart from being the odd static ones in museums, and there are many of them around the world. Well, many, I think you could count them on one hand. But until recently, there were no flying examples in the world, and there certainly aren't any flying today. And one of my beliefs is that the way that you can remember our forefathers, is to build something and get it operational. And that tells the story. But it's also is a story of innovation, which, I can spend and Ross will tell you, we can spend an old 2 hours about, aeroplanes and radio frequency, which we now call microwave technology, and the fact that this plane was flying electronic countermeasure operations, all these things that we kind of thought about, in recent wars and stuff like that. But again, it's also to inspire young people as well, and young engineers and young people into aviation. So with that, I decided to do something about this missing gap in our history. There you go.
It's beautiful. And you were doing some volunteer work with the aircraft and with restoring aircraft. You sent out that Twitter request, and you had overwhelming response. People just reacted to it. And I think that the Mosquito is just a very unique airplane that embodies that. And I've spoken about this with Ross a number of times, to take advantage of a number of incredible skill sets that were there in Britain at the time of World War II, to take advantage. We say composite is how Ross has been instructing me to say it, but to build to take advantage of materials that were there to make such a effective aircraft is amazing. Absolutely.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, obviously the thinking of the day was turning to aluminium monocoque style fighter aircraft.
Absolutely.
And bombers at the beginning of World War II were were predominantly all twin engines, armed. Ours were only armed with 303 machine guns, which I think you Americans affectionately called us pop guns,
right?
Compared to 50 calibers and stuff. And they were expected to fly, unescorted. Fighter escorts were not really heard of at the beginning, flying, doing daylight operations, but and basically come back. But what de Havilland did, or Geoffrey de Havilland, the owner, and basically the guiding light around the company, saw that he had a vision of a light, unarmed bomber, but made from wood, which was completely against the conventional thinking. And you can almost hear people at the time going, is he mad? Are they mad? Sort of thing. But you're right, it was able then to bring in a whole new workforce of, as Hermann Goering famously said, look at the British. They make a fantastic aeroplane out of wood using piano makers, cabinet makers. And what can you nincompoops do in Germany? Nothing. So if it gets the envy of one of the leading Nazis at the time, who was an evil guy, then, and that's great. So this design was different thinking, different skill sets of people, bringing them in, but also it allowed the aircraft to be built in modular form, not in one place.
Right.
They had assembly factories around the country, but suddenly you could outsource this to different parts of the UK. And that is so difficult for an enemy to keep striking against, isn't it? You could keep moving that production around, as very tactical as well. And there's a story. I mean, the aircraft nearly did not get into service, and there's a whole story behind that. But yes, I put a tweet out, and I was also influenced by an aircraft that Bill will talk about later, which is the Avro Vulcan, the Cold War 1950s, 60s nuclear bomber. And a UK team had raised money to take basically a retired RAF bomber, just recently retired out of service, and basically get it registered on the civilian registration for display purposes. And they'd done that by raising money from the public. But there's also a legacy from World War II. During the dark days of World War II, everybody needed money. And I know that this happened in the United States, called war bond tours. Well, we had things like Spitfire funds, for example, and Mosquito funds, where basically people were encouraged to donate a few dollars or a few shillings, in this case in England, a few pounds, whether it was individuals or businesses or even communities and even Commonwealth Islands out there, basically raise money to build, for the war effort. And that happened all over the world, including the United States. So with that principle, and with the fact that the Vulcan to the Sky team had done this, and they'd raised 26 million pounds to get a complex V-jet bomber, I thought to myself, I'm going to do the impossible. And I put out a tweet around about winter 2012. And I got about 45 guys coming back saying, I'm on board. Let's go.
and the rest they say is history. And we'll bring the history up to speed here. As we're coming up towards our first break, I want to bring Bill in. Bill, you represent, I think, probably the most important viewpoint that I want to get tonight, and that viewpoint is you are a career RAF officer, aviator, and explain to me what something like the Mosquito means to the history and to the understanding of what we have embodiments in the American Air Force of what bombers and fighters mean. We have legendary people that have risen up, at different times. To me, the Mosquito seems to have an incredibly strong presence in the RAF, but not highly visible, not highly celebrated. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, I think you make a fair point. To put it in what we call the pantheon of great British Merlin engine airplanes, everybody knows the Spitfire, everybody knows the Hurricane, everybody knows the Lancaster, so single engine Merlin, 4-engine Merlin. The Mosquito was a twin engine Merlin airplane, so it sits between them. It was there was some 7,500 of them made. I think Russell put me right if I'm wrong there. They weren't. They were
7,781.
I just knew he'd put me right. They were essentially designed as throwaway airplanes, disposable airplanes, which actually, just to fast forward, because I'm sure you guys follow the technology, the Loyal Wingman program that I know you guys are into, and so are we, are disposable airplanes, aren't they?
Yeah. I'm sure they'll be around for 40 years. Anytime you put disposable, I've flown 2 disposable, quote unquote, airplanes in my career. And when I got them, they were over 20 years old. So a lot of times those disposable airplanes tend to hang around.
But that was it. I mean, John's kind of covered the basic principle of the using different materials and using innovative technology. But the top thing was it was supposed to be faster, quicker, higher than the opposition. So it was not going to need guns because it was going to be too fast. And of course, for much of the war, it could outrun any fighter on either the German side, the Axis side, or indeed our own. It was only with the advent of, I think, probably the very late model FW-190s, but the jet fighters, right. The Messerschmitt and the 262s, that anything could catch the Mosquito. And of course, the Mosquito, like all great airplanes, was developed out of all recognition from first flight to the end of the war.
Bill, let me. I'm sorry, Bill. I'm going to interrupt you because I want to ask you one thing, because I think you're up against the edge of the point I'm trying to make. Though, to me, there's something very direct in the relationship of what the Mosquito means as an aircraft that went to combat, how it came out at some of the darkest times. Showing the greatest spirit of everything, engineering, just the enthusiasm and talent. And to me, it's almost a nearly perfect embodiment of what the RAF in World War II was. I mean, carrying on a fight that most figured you weren't going to win, and to come out of that with a punch. And we'll talk, hopefully, in the next half a little bit about some of the, I think, absolutely spectacular missions that the Mosquito pulled off. I know I've mentioned a number of them over the years on Mack's show here that captures. But am I right in saying that that this aircraft, because of just what it embodied, does capture what you would call the spirit of the Royal Air Force? Because to me, as an outsider, it sure does.
For me, when I got involved, I don't know how I did exactly because I wasn't really a Twitter person, but I heard about it and I knew that I had to support this effort. But whenever you talk to any military or ex-military pilot in the from the UK, and you say, which airplane do you really think we should get flying again? You will always get the answer, the Mosquito. And that's kind of it. I mean, it's I don't know. I'm nicking this from a member of the opposition. I'm sure you're familiar with Adolf Galland, really famous German fighter.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. His famous quote was, "Only the spirit of attack born in a brave heart will bring success." And maybe that you could say that about the guys who flew the Mosquito as well.
I think it's absolutely fitting, and I think that's correct. Ross, Sir Ross, explain how you were pulled into this universe, and then you can always, and in 10 seconds we can talk. You met me at an air show, and you had me signed up. I was practically signed up on the tarmac as we were talking.
You were. We'll go into that another time. Now, seriously, I was blessed. That's the only adequate way of describing it. For a number of years to be involved with the Royal Air Force's largest air show event, the Battle of Britain at Home days. And the first time I actually saw Bill Ramsey fly was at one of those events, and he was flying X-Ray Hotel 558, the Avro Vulcan. And I thought, my God, that guy's smooth. And anyway, I met him a few years later, and my reaction was, my God, that guy is smooth. But no, seriously, it's I was inspired by what the tweet that John wrote, and I wrote to him and I said, look, if you haven't got a team engineer on tap, this is what I've done. This is the resume. Let me in, please. I beg you. This has got to be done. And everybody, every single member of the board, everyone that's been involved, from our director of finance, Alan, to Steve, our marvelous marketing / IT / Mr. Everything guy, to Mark, the trading company, and so on and so forth. Everybody, without exception, is inspired, is driven by this vision of getting that Mosquito back in the air for Britain. It's part of what we are. Simple as that.
Well, I think that's probably one of the most eloquent ways it can be stated. To me, I am taken, obviously, when you are a geek like I am for these particular things, and absolutely love the Mosquito, and have had an affinity for it even as a small guy. We had a famous television program that would come over on PBS from Britain, The World at War, not the H.G. Wells special. We, of course, though, another British import that had interesting effect here as well, I should note on the side. They had a small section in there talking about the Mosquito, and it locked on for me because I was just taken by the fact that you could create something that fast, that capable, and then as the years have gone by and I've learned the different roles and missions, I can't think of another aircraft that I know of that could possibly have covered all the missions that it did. As a bomber, as an interceptor, doing night work with radar, to be a fighter bomber, to do open water work for sea denial and naval support, to be an airliner. I mean, it was working as a British Overseas Airways airliner to provide an incredibly important piece of diplomacy as well as capability with the neutral countries. It's phenomenal to me, and it soldiered on, flew on for a number of years afterwards.
If I may come in there, Commander, you talked about its design and inception. So kind of when they got the go-ahead for the first kind of first small contract for a bomber stroke recon, the idea was around in the late 30s, but the real get-go, the real sort of here's the approval, 1 year to first flight, 1 year.
And we just celebrate that here in the United States with the NGAD, a very secretive program that we have, the Next Generation Air Defense Fighter, that is they went doing this. And to me, it seems to emulate what de Havilland did with the lack of de Havilland not having computers and math lab and all the other fantastic things that we're doing. But they created that in a similar way. To me, just an amazing aircraft all around. And I think that's what draws people to it. And we're getting up against our first break here. So let me just run down the list of who's with us tonight. John Lilley, Bill Ramsey, retired wing commander from the Royal Air Force, Ross Sharp, practically has a chair here in the Mack Maloney Military X-Files. And my wingman tonight, or I am wingman to him, is Steve Switchblade Ward. We are on a special edition of Mack Maloney's Military X-Files. Mack and Juan-Juan and the rest of the gang are off on a secret mission that we have not been told many details to. So that should be an exciting debrief when we all get together to compare notes on how our operations went. Please stand by. We'll be back in a couple of seconds.
Do you know where the world's most secret bases are located? Do you know what spooky action at a distance means? Is there a conspiracy by aliens to prevent us from conquering space? And where is the best place in the United States to see a real UFO? Find the answers to all these questions and more in Mack Maloney's new book, Mack Maloney's Haunted Universe. Visit places you never knew existed, the Hampton Tunnels of Tokyo, the UFO Trail in South America, Ong's Hat, and the very mysterious M Triangle. Mack Maloney Haunted Universe contains hundreds of reports on ghosts, haunted planes and ships, weird celebrity deaths, mysterious sounds, and a breakdown of every monster in America, state by state. You've heard him talk about it on the radio. Now get all of Mack's paranormal research in one large volume, Mack Maloney's Haunted Universe, with a foreword by the very famous Juan-Juan. On sale now in your local bookstore or on Amazon.com.
Hello, this is Commander Cobra of Task Force Griffin, KGR Radio, KGRradio.com. And I need you to be a member like myself of the People's Mosquito and help rebuild and fly this great aircraft. I have 3 friends here today also who are going to ask you the same thing. Consider becoming a member of the People's Mosquito.
Hello, I'm John Lilley. I'm the Managing Director of the People's Mosquito, and I'd like you to donate or support our flying program.
Hi, I'm Ross Sharp. I'm the Director of Engineering of the People's Mosquito, and I'd like you to help us rebuild this magnificent aircraft.
Hi, I'm Bill Ramsey. I'm the Operations Director and Tame Pilot of the People's Mosquito. I need you to join us and become my wingman.
Join all of us and be a supporter of the People's Mosquito program. Thanks.
I was in the hospital with my son for 18 months.
When he got injured, I wasn't prepared, but I knew I had to be strong.
When I was told about John's injury, I was in complete shock. I just remember rushing into his room and giving him a big hug and letting him know I was there.
These veterans and families are just a few of the heroes we serve at Homes for Our Troops. For thousands of severely injured veterans, everyday life is filled with barriers.
It was really the little things throughout the house. Counters that you can't roll up to. I had to drag my wheelchair down steps.
I want to help, but he is so determined.
At Homes for Our Troops, we build specially adapted custom homes with features like wheelchair access, roll-in showers, and automatic door openers that allow them to function independently and focus on their recovery and family.
This house is freedom. It's hope. It's a new beginning.
This house has given me my family back.
To learn more, visit hfotusa.org.
UFOs are found in Renaissance art, on ancient coins, and etched on cave walls. They're even reported in the Bible. But more surprising is when UFOs are seen the most, in times of war. Through centuries, thousands of UFO sightings have been made by high-ranking officials, military pilots, and ordinary soldiers. Often, these fantastic appearances occur at the height of great battles. From World War I to D-Day, to Korea, Vietnam, and beyond, military investigators are baffled. Why do UFO sightings spike so drastically during wartime? Could it be mistaken aircraft? Or is someone, or something, looking in on us? In UFOs in Wartime, What They Didn't Want You to Know, Mack Maloney chronicles centuries of these incredible sightings and tries to solve the puzzle of why so many UFOs are seen while humanity is at war. Read about the scare ships, the ghost planes, and the ghost rockets, alien giants in the jungles of Vietnam, UFOs controlling our ICBM bases, dogfights with flying saucers during the Gulf War, and more. 300 pages of unbelievable stories, along with many startling photographs. That's UFOs in Wartime, What They Didn't Want You to Know by Mack Maloney. On sale at your local bookstore or on Amazon.com.
Welcome back to Mack Maloney's Military X-Files, a very special edition of Military X-Files tonight because Mack and JJ are away, which is probably crushing a great deal of the audience. Hopefully our numbers won't be too low, Switch. But with me tonight, Switch is with me tonight, coming up to us from Michigan. We already have talked about the culinary impact, but I think it's an important point that I wanted to bring up. I have all I had for preparation for the show tonight, in honor of in part of the honor with the folks and partially my heritage growing up, is I had a large cup of tea coming in for the show. So I think it's pretty appropriate. And I know that later on, Bill will probably make a remark that I'm making up for small indiscretion in the 1700s, where a bunch of countrymen threw some tea overboard in Boston, where I'm originally from, and kicked off a little fuss or two that we had going on back then. But I have a very special note for everybody, and most of the folks on the U.S. side of the show know of this. Switch departed here this summer with a large liter container of it. Parnon Estates is an olive oil that's being imported by a very good friend of mine from Greece, from his family, into the States. And it is phenomenal. Absolutely some of the best that I've ever had. And I'm trying to give them a quick little plug for folks to take a look at. It's ParnonEstates.com, Parnon Estates. They have phenomenal products there. The olive oil, which is their mainstay, unbelievable. And talk about health benefits as well as just fantastic taste. And it's a really special group of people behind it. So keep that in mind. And I wanted to throw that in there because after this recording and after this show's done tonight, I will be using it as I prepare a meal for tonight for Mrs. Cobra and myself. With that said, let's talk about our guests tonight. John Lilley, director of the People's Mosquito. Bill Ramsey, Wing Commander, retired RAF, director of operations, and the director of engineering and airframe compliance. Our own beloved Ross Sharp, who is practically a fixture here on the show anyways. Ross, we were talking with you last as we were coming out, going into the break. Coming out, I want to start with you. Give me and everyone here a thumbnail sketch of the absolute incredible database and information that has been compiled of the People's Mosquito. There is an unbelievable series of fantastic events, in my opinion, that have come together on this. And then when we get done with that, I have a couple questions from people over the last few months that have written me directly, Commander Cobra, at my email, to about this mosquito project. Go ahead, Ross.
Okay. Well, I have to say straight off the bat that this project would not be as successful as it's proving to be if it wasn't for the actions of one Mr. John Lilley, Esquire, star of Stage, Screen, and this radio, in rescuing, at the point of a wrecker's ball, what turned out to be a treasure trove of 22,300 technical drawings on microfiche that were being scrapped, or the building they were in was being scrapped, in North Wales. They made a mad dash cross country and picked these drawings up in black garbage sacks, because that's all that they had to hand at the time, and brought them back to the HQ, whereupon they were piled on one of our members' kitchen table in a pile 8 feet long and approximately 7 inches high. And people say, what are we going to do? Well, the answer is that John and Co. arranged for them to be digitized and saved for posterity. We still have the originals, of course. And then some lunatic had to go through these one by one and assess them and categorize them as to whether they're okay. And it took me about 4 months, working up to 12 hours a day. but it was good fun and well worth it. And then handed all this marvelous information over to our, how can I say, wizard engineers, our retained builders, Retrotech Limited, under the able guidance of Guy and Janice Black, who were able to take this and start producing work packs. And as we drag the money in, and every dollar we get and every pound we get goes towards building another component for the fuselage molds, or some internals that we're starting to work on, like instrument packs and so on and so forth. So it's just fabulous. It really is. It's driven by the people. That's why it's the people's Mosquito. So that's the literally the thing that initiated it. It's like the initiator in a nuclear device. It went off bang after that point.
Sure did. And phenomenal. Again, to me, it's another incredible backstory to, you're talking about blueprints that were put on microfiche, fairly old technology. And then from there being digitized and brought up to the current, way that we do business and the age that we do that. And I think it's incredible when we talk about, as we were talking about earlier with Prince Philip and his dedication to what we call STEM here in the United States, or the colonies, that we need to have material available. I can only imagine someone that's just kind of banging around the internet will stumble across the site or stumble upon a collection of these paperwork, or working on something, and find some original documents from the 1940s showing the layout and the design engineering. Just recently, because I serve as the handmaiden to Ross when it comes to giving the lectures and briefings, and I tell you now, for all members of TPM, he continues to absolutely bring the house down. He did one recently to an organization in the greater Boston area through a mutual friend of ours, and it was just absolutely warmly received. It just rave reviews by a group of what I consider very, very tough engineers that were just absolutely blown away by Ross's capabilities on that. But I've given a couple briefings on the Mosquito to a number of Civil Air Patrol cadets, because I think that's one of the most important missions that you can do is to spark that interest. And it doesn't have to have everyone end up in a cockpit flying the airplane, but Dawn, I would say that that's probably, the reason that you want to, but there is so much to be caught up in what this airplane is doing, what the People's Mosquito Project is doing. And I'm ecstatically happy that we could get that. Bill, let me ask you a quick question here. That will on my long list. There's a designation. Well, I guess this is open to anybody. The designation DH-98 is seen on the website, as well as R-249. What do those two designations mean in regards to the project airplane?
Okay, the word de Havilland, DH de Havilland, I guess model 98.
Correct.
It's just the type name, Mosquito. So I guess it's like F-16 and Viper. So
right.
So similar to that. RL-249 is the military serial number for one specific aeroplane. RL-249, as you know, was a post-war night fighter. In the same way that X-Ray Hotel 558 was the Vulcan which I flew. So it's like a registration on your car.
And that's important, Ross, because that's the basis of how you work the certification to get this airplane back and certified when it's completely rebuilt.
Yeah, John will back me up on this, I'm sure. We had a conference, full-on conference. So John and I were expecting to just have a nice discussion meeting, as John would tell you. And we found ourselves, when we reported to the Civil Aviation Authority headquarters at Beehive House in Gatwick Airport, we were ushered into a very large conference room. And I looked at John, I thought, well, this is a bit large, What are these people who we're meeting? And before we knew it, we found ourselves facing the chairman of the aerospace, the SRG as it was then. It's now the SARG. and safety regulation group of the CAA, the chairman. There was the head of the legal branch. There was the head of material sciences. There was not the head of propulsion, but he was on leave. There was his deputy head of propulsion and others. It was full on, and we had to literally hold our own for a shade over 2 hours, I think it was, John. And in front of the chairman, there was a huge bound copy. It's about 5 inches thick of CAP Civil Air Publication 553, which is the Bible for the building and operation of aircraft in the United Kingdom. And the chairman got up and towards the end of things, and he tapped the front of the book and he said something to John and I, which was quite profound. He said, "Gentlemen, you will notice I didn't have to open that once." So we knew we were in at that point. So that was the start of the project and the big surge forward from then onwards.
I'll tell you, if you guys could figure out a way to patent that or put it into a bottle, there's thousands of people that would love to have that, that capability, because to me it's unheard of. But it's in line with this project. It's in line with the people that are leading the project and then contributing to it. Someone's going to go ahead.
I was going to say the formula, I guess, what I thought of was, I've got a great guy in Ross who knows the regulations as they are today, but also understands the design and build of the aircraft from yesterday.
Right.
And with that, Ross, with the help of Bill as well, let's bring Bill on this. What they've championed is to make this the rebuild, or we call it a remanufacture here, to be as safe as possible. So that not only, because of course safety is absolutely paramount to everybody's flight, whenever you fly, a glider to a helicopter to an airliner, people know something goes wrong, it goes wrong quickly and it's not a good end. So everybody's focused on that, but with that in mind, then is in preparation. So with Bill and Ross getting their heads together with their experience, their knowledge, we went in and we had a game plan to share with them. We just went through the game plan and said, take any questions. And like Ross said, we expected 2 people, and we were told we can only give you 30 minutes. We're at 2 hours, But that then instills confidence. When you've instilled confidence in your authorities, when you've got your business plan, because we need £8 million to do this, right? Roughly today. It might grow to 9 million because of inflation and other things, time, but it's a lot of money today, absolutely a lot of money today. And so once you've got that and you go out when you're going out and saying, please give me your pound or your dollar, one of the things you have to do is give them confidence. You know what you're talking about, but also in this case, the authorities are confident in you. And not
Absolutely.
and not only that, anybody that flies in this aircraft, we want it to be there to be enjoyed for many years to come. And we're planning to have a really good, 2-3 decades airframe life.
Absolutely. Yeah, when this baby goes to the museum, she'll have a long and distinguished flight career. That's the toast on my lips on every drink. Switch, what do you think of all this? You coming from the silent service, you've been thrown into the flying arts with me quite a bit. What do you think?
Well, of course, there's jokes about submarines with screen doors, and I don't know about wooden submarines, but that probably would not work. But I wonder, you're doing this from scratch, and there's so many things that don't exist to make this work. Can you give us an example of some of the obstacles that you came up against and how you solved them to make this project work?
Yeah, the first one is the fuselage. And for anyone listeners that know Mosquito, the wooden fuselage is made on a mold. So you have this mold. You have 2 halves, actually. You make 2 halves. So, guys, I guess it's Revel in your country, but you made model kits as kids. Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you're making model kits, and everybody at home, you got this in your head now, you would glue two halves of a fuselage together to make the fuselage for your model aeroplane. So in real life, that's a Mosquito. You have two halves and glue them together. To get the two halves, though, you need a mold. Yeah, you need molds to the profile of the fuselage from where the tail section starts to the nose. Yeah, and then a big gap for the wings. And the molds. The New Zealanders there are 3 flying Mosquitoes restored in the world. They spent about 10, 12 years bringing back molds. And we could have had the fuselage made over there. But with this bonanza of getting all these drawings together, we found what's called the lofting drawings, which is a naval term, actually. Basically, and it's also got bulkheads, which is another naval term. Things like this. But these lofting drawings enable Retrotech, our appointed engineers, as Ross mentioned, and aircraft remanufacturers, who, by the way, hold all the UK civil aviation manufacturing and engineering licenses. So that's important for the confidence. And I've made some brilliant aeroplanes. But from that, we were able to make the first molds, and we are currently finishing them off for this aircraft in 73 years. So, as you said, the reference there, going back when this aircraft goes into a museum, with the molds there, Commander, you can make another one. Because the secret to the ingredient to Mosquito is the fuselage molds. Because once you've got them, you can reproduce. And, and you're off. And we've also got the wing jigs, the tail jigs, the Bombay doors. We've got all the tooling. It's all there. And now we've got the drawings, which we've digitized. And so that was the first obstacle. And we did it because the secret was the drawings. And then using CAD as a modern thing, we're using CAD to check the profiles. And we're also going to use a thing called a Faro arm, which Ross might tell you what it is in a minute, which basically does a laser scan as well. So we're using new technology to ensure the engineering is spot on. Another example, you're right, the parts are not off the shelf from 1940. They're just not around. There are some things you can still get. For enough, tyres for the aircraft are still available. But certainly some of the more, the Mosquito did have metal fittings as well. The rudder pedals were magnesium. So we're also getting around that because we've got the drawing, and we've got a volunteer who is doing all CAD work to make the castings for these things. So again, but we're also searching the world for actually, new old stock material or things that we can refurbish. And yeah, it's limited. But again, because you have drawings, or you can go to a museum and scan something now with modern technology, there is an answer around every problem.
Excellent.
There you go. You say you're Submariner, I take it, yes?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the Mosquito also came in what we call there was various marks, various types of the aircraft. A famous one was what's called the Mark 18 Mosquito, but it was also given the nickname of Tetsi, after a very nasty fly.
Yes.
Fly. Yeah. Well, the Tetsi carried a 6-pound 57mm anti-tank gun. And it had the ability. Its role was anti-U-boat and anti-shipping.
Oh, great!
Yeah,
and there is
Switch is always excited.
Well,
I'm sorry about this Switch. But,
I was one of the good guys, so I'm not worried about that. As long as you
okay, great. Well, there you go. But the weapon was designed to, and we still have a veteran today, Flight Lieutenant Des Curtis, DFC, still alive. He's 98, and he flew as a navigator over the Bay of Biscay, and we've got a YouTube channel, and we did a 3-hour kind of presentation on our YouTube channel, People Mosquito. Watch that, folks. There's a bit with Des Curtis in it, and he tells us how they used to fly basically at 60 feet across the Bay of Biscay, and using, funnily enough, broken code from the Enigma machines. They kind of knew there was a channel where the U-boats needed to surface. But they were going at 60 feet. There would be flak ships protecting the U-boat. They would pop up to a couple of 100 feet and then do a shallow dive and let rip with this 57mm, which had 22 rounds that could fire one a second. and then they were banking away because they were meeting 20 mil, 30 mil flak commander, which I guess you would appreciate. Is not nice stuff coming at you.
No, it's not. But I want to drag Bill in on this because you brought up the YouTube channel, and I'm glad that you said it because it's on my checklist. The People's Mosquito has a YouTube channel, great programs. We also have a number of seminars when we get together that present a lot of incredible first-hand accounts as well as updates of what's going on with the program. It's a really phenomenal way to participate. Bill, with your extensive tactical aircraft experience, are you in the same company with me in the absolute adoration of the fact that these airplanes could take a lot of punishment, stay together, and were easily, in relative terms, repaired, put back into service very, very quickly?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was just going to say to Switch as a piece of solidarity that my last airplane, the Vulcan, had 2 periscopes. So we have something in common. Yeah, you're right. And I'm sure you'll have seen the battle damage, particularly to rudders and tailplanes on Mosquitoes. Yeah, like many other airplanes, airplanes which came back with massive, massive holes in a primary control structure. So yeah, and you're right. The machine, but I go back to the idea was that I think, and Russell put me right if I'm wrong, I think the airplane wasn't really expected to serve for more than about 6 weeks, Ross?
Something of that order. There was also a great problem that it was predicted by the experts, inverted commas, that it would catch fire easily, which turned out not to be the case.
Yeah, so yes, it was, but yes, I mean, light materials, skilled craftsmen who could mend pianos and cabinets and stuff for lords and ladies. Mending the hole made by an 88mm cannon, I guess, was child's play for them.
Yeah, butt joints were the actual order of the day. And when you wanted to convert a Mosquito, all you did, say, for example, from a bomber, in one case, to a high-altitude fighter, you took out your trusty saw and you sawed the nose off at the appropriate point and grafted a new one on. It was that convertible.
Well, Ross, you bring up one other thing that's on my list to bring up, and it's incredibly strong airplane. Took advantage of some great properties of some very special wood that produced great strength to weight ratio there. But the wing box design that de Havilland had come up with is almost, to me, as critical or important as the fuselage, the capsulated fuselage being brought together. I mean, to me, it's just tremendous. I've flown a couple airplanes that have that emulate that same kind of characteristic, that it puts all the shared demands of high G flight, high speed flight, and does it with a lot of elegance.
Yeah, there are some interesting design features on the aircraft. For example, the wing itself is very strong, as you mentioned. It's got a double skin of plywood on the top surface, separated by spacers. It's a single skin on the bottom. The whole wing itself is carried on a pickup structure that's made of walnut wood, which is incredibly strong. And it's held onto the fuselage by just 4 large bolts. The fuselage itself is the wooden monocoque structure, sandwiched with balsa between birch or spruce 3-ply, and then reinforced at various places by spruce strengthening parts. And also there are 7 bulkheads involved laterally down the length of the fuselage. And also, as the fuselage diameter reduces, then the plywood skins of the fuselage cease to be laid immediately fore and aft and start to be laid in a spiral form at 45 degrees, so you're going to 90-degree bend top and bottom sandwich, but they're at 45 degrees and being able to take a greater load of the tail group. Brilliant piece of design. There's no doubt about it. Sir Geoffrey Haviland and his design team took the parts that they think they didn't need, such as the gun turrets, the extra crew, the extra fuel to carry the extra crew and the gun turrets, etc., and just reduced it. So you had an aircraft that had that was just 40% more wetted area, as they call it. That's the outside area exposed to the airstream. 40% more wetted area than a Spitfire, with twice the engine power.
Right. They definitely embodied what is now very popular when we talk about agility and some of the other engineering and business practices. They had their goal defined and worked backwards from that to build the design to get to it. I mean, and it wasn't evolutionary. It was a revolutionary leap that they took there. No doubt about it.
Mm.
Now, John, why I have you here, it wouldn't be replete if we did not have a little discussion about you flying the Vulcan.
John,
excuse me, Bill.
Yes.
Talking about the Vulcan. Sorry about that. You did a masterful job with it. Another great presence on YouTube for anybody that wants to see some incredible information and scenes about flying it behind the scenes. Give us a little talk about that, because I love the airplane. Another one that I was greatly taken with in my early on in my flying career. And I do want to make quick note that I believe that the chapel window, if I saw the last update, has been completed. Is that correct, or nearly complete?
Yeah. So answer your second question. You're talking about the stained glass window it's the village church in the village of Scampton,
right?
Which is just next to the RF station. They have raised a lot of money to replace the main windows by the altar with a pair of stained glass windows to commemorate the people who served at RF Scampton, which is a station which is going to cease operations in about a year's time. And on those windows, they put some of the airplanes that the station's famous for. So the Lancaster, everybody remembers from 617 Squadron and the Dam Busters. The Vulcan, which is actually Vulcan X-Ray Hotel 558, because Vulcans were stationed there for many, many years. And the Red Arrows, who are the current people who are there. So, so that window is very nearly finished, and all things being equal, they're hoping to have them put into the church by late summer, I think, this year. As for the Vulcan, I mean, it's interesting. We're talking about the revolutionary advance in aircraft that the Mosquito represented. Post-war, you could argue the Vulcan was pretty similar. Bearing in mind it's an Avro aeroplane, so from a different but equally famous stable. Avro manufactured the Avro Lancaster, which again, contemporary of the Mosquito. But only 11 years after the Lancaster first flew, the first Vulcan flew. It was a 4-jet, not 4-piston. It could fly twice as high, twice as fast, twice as far as the Lancaster could. It was a delta wing aircraft, for those who don't know it, so an unusual shape for the time, and specifically designed to carry the British nuclear weapon of the time, which, like many others then, was a very, very large weapon. Is that what you want to know about the Vulcan, or just all flying it?
Oh, no, I think a lot of folks don't know about it. And, of course, your time flying it is well documented. And we're coming up against the end of this, our next break. So I did want to make sure that I got mentioned. I think the stained glass window project was a really touching and a really nice thing that got done. And I was actually able to contact the church directly. And had some nice conversations with them via email. So it's a great project, and I think it's going to be a fitting way. Yes, go ahead.
It's the time to just tell you real quickly, in the churchyard there are something like 50-odd, or more than that actually, RF people who gave their lives in that. But also there are four German crews from, I think it was a Junkers 188 intruder, Ross.
Yeah.
Which had a crew of 3, but one of the ground crew asked if he could go along for the trip to see what happened, and he was shot down with the crew and died along with the rest of them, which is I find really touching.
And the fact that they're all were rendered with honors into the same graveyard, it bespokes a lot of different aspects of what goes on in warfare, in the human struggle. So I think it is a fitting thing to make point of. So as we come up against this break, 2 things I wanted to bring up. First, my eternal thanks to both of you for staying up late and talking to us from the UK and giving us the update and urging people to join the People's Mosquito. That's the peoplesmosquito.org.uk. Just put it into any search engine, you'll arrive and join that. Second point that I wanted to bring up, by the time this airs, Mac, JJ, Switch, and our guest producer tonight, Skywatcher, will all be members of the People's Mosquito. I've made a commitment to the organization that each month I'm trying to put up a membership as a way to boost membership in numbers. And that's my small contribution to the effort this year to get us another step closer. And one last point, to me, nothing embodies this better, especially when you get into the paranormal aspect that Mac and what we bring on this show. The Shepherd by Mr. Forsyth is one of the greatest short books you can read about military flying, aviation, and it has a great ending. Obviously, most people who have followed me in the past know that it is my Christmas Eve tradition, because the story takes place on Christmas Eve, to listen to a recording of that done by the BBC. There's a couple also great episodes of it out there by Canadian Broadcasting, and a book on tape CD rendition of it as well. Fantastic. Mr. Forsyth is a supporter of TPM, and John and Bill, I thank you very, very much for joining us tonight. And,
thank you.
And I thank you for your leadership and your continued commitment to keeping the mad Englishmen on target for getting the Mosquito back into there.
Cool. Thanks, Cobra. Thanks, Switch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was great sharing time with the mad Englishman.
And
our pleasure.
And for you gentlemen to know, on UK Paranormal, Switch has a show that makes the airways there. So keep an ear out for that as well.
The high strangeness factor.
Well, we appreciate the invite. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, gentlemen, as always. Okay, folks, we'll run to a break. Mack Maloney's Military X-Files. It is a small show tonight with Switch and myself in a 2-ship formation trying to drive this through. I think we're keeping Ross on, and we're going to be coming back right after this break for a very special Fringe Report with Switch. Please stand by.
Do you know where the world's most secret bases are located? Do you know what spooky action at a distance means? Is there a conspiracy by aliens to prevent us from conquering space? And where is the best place in the United States to see a real UFO? Find the answers to all these questions and more in Mack Maloney's new book, Mack Maloney's Haunted Universe. Visit places you never knew existed: the Hampton Tunnels of Tokyo, the UFO Trail in South America, Ong's Hat, and the very mysterious M Triangle. Mack Maloney Haunted Universe contains hundreds of reports on ghosts, haunted planes and ships, weird celebrity deaths, mysterious sounds, and a breakdown of every monster in America, state by state. You've heard him talk about it on the radio. Now get all of Mack's paranormal research in one large volume. Mack Maloney's Haunted Universe, with a foreword by the very famous Juan-Juan. On sale now in your local bookstore or on Amazon.com. Do you know where the world's most secret bases are located? Do you know what spooky action at a distance means? Is there a conspiracy by aliens to prevent us from conquering space? And where is the best place in the United States to see a real UFO? Find the answers to all these questions and more in Mack Maloney's new book, Mack Maloney's Haunted Universe. Visit places you never knew existed, the Hampton Tunnels of Tokyo, the UFO Trail in South America, Ong's Hat, and the very mysterious M Triangle. Mack Maloney Haunted Universe contains hundreds of reports on ghosts, haunted planes and ships, weird celebrity deaths, mysterious sounds, and a breakdown of every monster in America, state by state. You've heard him talk about it on the radio. Now get all of Mack's paranormal research in one large volume, Mack Maloney's Haunted Universe, with a foreword by the very famous Juan-Juan. On sale now in your local bookstore or on Amazon.com.
Hello, this is Commander Cobra of Task Force Griffin, KJR Radio, KJRradio.com. And I need you to be a member like myself of the People's Mosquito and help rebuild and fly this great aircraft. I have 3 friends here today also who are going to ask you the same thing. Consider becoming a member of the People's Mosquito.
Hello, I'm John Lilley. I'm the Managing Director of the People's Mosquito, and I'd like you to donate or support our flying program.
Hi, I'm Ross Sharp. I'm the Director of Engineering of the People's Mosquito, and I'd like you to help us rebuild this magnificent aircraft.
Hi, I'm Bill Ramsey. I'm the Operations Director and Tame Pilot of the People's Mosquito. I need you to join us and become my wingman.
Join all of us and be a supporter of the People's Mosquito program. Thanks.
I was in the hospital with my son for 18 months.
When he got injured, I wasn't prepared, but I knew I had to be strong.
When I was told about John's injury, I was in complete shock. I just remember rushing into his room and giving him a big hug and letting him know I was there.
These veterans and families are just a few of the heroes we serve at Homes for Our Troops. For thousands of severely injured veterans, everyday life is filled with barriers.
It was really the little things throughout the house. Counters that you can't roll up to. How to drag my wheelchair down steps.
I want to help, but he is so determined.
At Homes for Our Troops, we build specially adapted custom homes with features like wheelchair access, roll-in showers, and automatic door openers that allow them to function independently and focus on their recovery and family.
This house is freedom. It's hope. It's a new beginning.
This house has given me my family back.
To learn more, visit hfotusa.org.
UFOs are found in Renaissance art, on ancient coins, and etched on cave walls. They are even reported in the Bible. But more surprising is when UFOs are seen the most, in times of war. Through centuries, thousands of UFO sightings have been made by high-ranking officials, military pilots, and ordinary soldiers. Often, these fantastic appearances occur at the height of great battles. From World War I to D-Day to Korea, Vietnam, and beyond, military investigators are baffled. Why do UFO sightings spike so drastically during wartime? Could it be mistaken aircraft, or is someone or something looking in on us? In UFOs in Wartime, What They Didn't Want You to Know, Mack Maloney chronicles centuries of these incredible sightings and tries to solve the puzzle of why so many UFOs are seen while humanity is at war. Read about the scare ships, the ghost planes, and the ghost rockets, alien giants in the jungles of Vietnam, UFOs controlling our ICBM bases, dogfights with flying saucers during the Gulf War, and more. 300 pages of unbelievable stories, along with many startling photographs. That's UFOs in Wartime, What They Didn't Want You to Know, by Mack Maloney. On sale at your local bookstore or on Amazon.com.
Welcome back to Mack Maloney's Military X-Files. A very special rendition of the show tonight. Commander Cobra here, taking the helm as JJ and Mack and the rest of the gang are off on a special secret mission. Not a lot of details. It is Switch and I in the 2-ship formation driving to success and hopefully a successful mission, which Mack told us earlier in our specially sealed orders to complete the show and try not to break anything expensive. Switch, what do you think? Are we fulfilling our mission obligations here?
I think so, but I wonder if they're actually off on some kind of a junket that the Mack Maloney's Military X-Files is paying for.
Tomato, okay, composite. And I say that because the other person that is with us tonight, who's with us, who can explain the difference between mission, special secret mission, and junket, and do it with such eloquence, is Mr. Ross Sharp. Ross, how are you?
I am delighted to be with you and Switch and the incredible producer Bill over there. And I want to know what's going on with regard to a certain Mr. Maloney and JJ disappearing off into the weeds, so to speak. But
I'm wondering if this is some kind of reaction, Switch. Because Switch can probably give a good reaction because I have been gone, and I'm gone a couple times out of the month on required secret missions for my other job, the day job, as we like to say. Juan-Juan has had a couple occasions where he's disappeared. What do you think, Switch? Is this just some kind of a payback?
Well, maybe they're kind of jealous. You get to go off on secret missions, so they want to have a secret mission also.
Right. Well, the other part is that there seems to be sometimes a certain sign or display of affection when I'm gone by people that come on and want to know where I am, or emails that are sent to Mac. So please flood us with Mac. JJ, never do this again. Cobra drove this thing practically into the waves, something like that, and we'll move forward. Well, we're very lucky to have a fringe report tonight, and Switch does an incredible amount of investigative work, research work. He's probably one of the smartest guys that I know on doing the research and doing the hard work on that. What do you have for us tonight, Switch?
Well, this took place. We don't have a lot of details, specific details like names and so forth, but the Daily Mail came out with this report, and what it has to do with, we'll get a little more into detail, but it was an RAF pilot. This is toward the end of World War II. He encountered kind of a classic UFO. Now, we don't have a lot of description of it, but it's like a large metallic object, very classic. And the way this came forth was there's a scientist, and we don't have his name. He claimed that his grandfather was one of Churchill's bodyguards at the time when this incident took place. And this comes from declassified Ministry of Defense UFO files, and they were made available online by the National Archives. Now, the witness to this, the experiencer, is not named in the file. But this, like I say, this took place toward the end of World War II. It was an RAF reconnaissance plane returning from a mission, and it was either France or Germany. So again, we don't have all the specifics that we would love to have, but we are getting this out of the files, and the information surfaced when the grandson from Leicester wrote the government, because he had heard about this from his grandfather, and he wanted to see if he could get any more specific information, because his grandfather was supposed to have been present when Eisenhower and Churchill actually discussed this incident, and we'll get a little more specific as to what happened. But Eisenhower wanted to classify it. He said it would create panic in the general population and destroy one's belief in the church. So what had happened was the pilot was near the English coastline when he was intercepted by a strange metallic object. Now, there may be drawings in the archives or whatever, but we don't have them. Now, this thing. Now, again, this is sometime in the early mid 40s, several years before Kenneth Arnold's famous sighting, before flying saucers were a topic in the newspapers. The Foo Fighters, I don't know how much people knew about the so-called Foo Fighters at the time, these strange objects that seemed to be pacing planes.
That was greatly classified, right, Ross? I mean, the Foo Fighter stuff was never brought out.
No, it was not. As a matter of fact, it was mixed up. There was disinformation at this point in time, because it was put about that the Germans were using a new type of anti-aircraft scare tactic. They called them scarecrow shells, and they were supposed to project sort of an image on the retina of an exploding British aircraft to scare the bomber stream. And in fact, these weren't German anti-aircraft shells projecting an image. They were actually Lancasters and Halifaxes blowing up. So they were told that this was possibly just another type of scare tactic being done by the Germans. But it's strange that Switch should mention it was a reconnaissance aircraft. In the Daily Mail report, which I read, by the way, Switch, it shows an image of a Mosquito PR-16, and it's highly likely to have been a Mosquito that was followed by this UFO. So that's extremely interesting in its own right, as far as we're concerned.
Right. And of course, the Foo Fighters, when people started seeing them, everybody thought it was somebody else's aircraft or technology, and of course, it was something else altogether, whatever that was.
Well, it appears to be, because no one's been able to make claim of them on either side.
Right.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, I was just saying that yes, the Foo Fighters were regularly reported by what we call main force aircraft, that is the bomber command streams that were sent out almost nightly to attack German targets in Europe. And the gunners in the turrets of these Lancasters and Halifaxes and Stirlings were regularly on a very high alert, and they would report these lights, which they were firmly convinced must be, from the Axis powers. And
when the plane was intercepted, this thing started pacing it. It followed its course, it matched its speed, and it did that for a time. And then all of a sudden, it accelerated, took off, and disappeared in the distance. So Churchill's people and Eisenhower's people, they, of course, it's like it is now. They tried to come up with some kind of a plausible explanation to make this sensible. And there was a high degree of concern because they couldn't. I mean, they came up with the possibility of a missile, but the missile would have had to be moving too slow to keep pace with the plane. And the change in speed and the way it accelerated and went off into the distance, nothing made any sense. So they realized that whatever the heck this was well beyond the capabilities of the time. So Churchill stated that this incident should be classified for 50 years, and that a future prime minister should review it. So let's let another prime minister a half a century from now try and figure this out. Now, the scientist, his grandfather, did not really. The first time he actually talked about this incident was to his daughter when she was 9 years old, and he died in 1973. So apparently, it's not really stated how the grandson found out about the specifics, but the grandfather would occasionally hint that about the. He kind of hint about the incident without actually talking about it, that we might have there might be flight technologies that are far superior to what may be possible, hinting that there's something else out there. Now,
Switch. Let me grab something real quick here.
Yeah, sure.
An interesting point that I wanted to bring up in my mind. When I hear this, you're talking about two people that are at the absolute pinnacle of trying to keep the world in what I would consider the light or the wind column. So there's a lot of a substantial conflict that's going on here, and things taking up their time. Churchill, obviously, to me, one of the greatest prime ministers of the UK, no doubt in my mind, and Eisenhower, which I consider a great military leader, and to me, a very good president as well, who has been rumored for years to have been involved in actually meeting extraterrestrials, He was responsible for putting together the manned space program in the United States, getting that really organized and brought together to move forward. Was there for the Sputnik launch. Obviously, I read the same article, and one of the things that's always attracted me to it is because the Mirror decided to use a rendition of the reconnaissance Mosquito with a very classical UFO depiction behind it on there. Do you think that this, plus the war, was a formative kind of event that carries over later on to Eisenhower when he had to make decisions? And I'm going to start with Ross before I come back to you, Switch.
Okay.
Well, certainly this was an event that had ramifications, in that Churchill thought that it was so potentially devastating to public morale that these papers must be classified for a minimum of 50 years. There are other strange phenomena that were reported by Royal Air Force personnel over the years. There have been time compression or lapses. There have been definitely lights and unidentified flying objects. And it's interesting that now, for example, crossing the pond to where we are, that the Defense Department have actually now confirmed that leaked video of unidentified aerial phenomena is real. And there's several clips that are out there, a number of reports. They're saying that unauthorized and or unidentified aircraft, quote, have entered various military-controlled ranges and designated airspace in recent years. That's going to the Navy. That statement was made in 2019. And later, of course, there's been some releases of the target video off the West Coast. But even so, it's strange that there appears to be a cascade of either wink and a nod releases or drip feeding stuff into the consciousness on both sides of the pond. As to whether we're being prepared for a very big announcement, I don't know. But it's interesting that the momentum seems to be building.
Switch, what do you think? Because I agree with Ross to a great degree.
Yes, and but I as far as disclosure, I'm still skeptical. You know, we get these, like you say, these little tidbits, and they actually get to a point where they say, well, yeah, you know what, this is unidentified. We don't know what it is, and then that's it. There's all kinds of things out there. There's photographs, legitimate photographs of the surface of Mars, not the CGI stuff, of stuff they've taken on various Mariner missions, where you see things that look like trees and so forth. And there's no discussion about it. There's nothing official. So I don't know. I just think I don't know what. It's almost like they think that if they just don't say too much about it, it'll go away, or it will maintain sort of an even keel of knowledge, of skepticism, of belief, or whatever, and nothing will happen. But as far as, you know, these two men, I mean, if this incident is true, it must have influenced their thinking about for later on, and some of the decisions they made. I mean, that's pretty astounding that they were seeing these craft, these high-tech craft during World War II, and with no explanation. And even in Whitehall, officials investigated the claims, and they tried to see if there was any record of this conversation between Churchill and Eisenhower, and supposedly there wasn't. And interesting that an MOD official wrote in 1999 that prior to 1967, all UFO files were destroyed because, and quote, there was insufficient public interest in the subject to merit their permanent retention. So
that tells you that there's a duplicate file someplace when there's insufficient public attention to something that seems to be very popular in almost every part of the culture. And I do want to make a quick side note, because we will get emails about it. Switch did manage, even in this show, to bring up Keel. And I'm going to simply ask, is even keel related to John? and you don't actually have to answer that on air. Ross, you wouldn't respect me if I didn't take that shot.
I know. It was a cheap one, though, Commander.
I was only below the hard deck for a couple seconds.
I
had to take the shot. I had to take the shot.
Well, if that were true, any files in the World War II era would have been destroyed if it was true. And a civil servant tried, he said, to find out if that alleged conversation between Churchill and Eisenhower was recorded anywhere, and because the grandson said this was something important enough that should have been taken into account, should have been able to find somewhere. The Daily Mail maintained that it was known that Churchill was interested in UFOs, but they don't pursue it. Churchill died in 1965, so certainly he knew about flying saucers and UFOs, but I don't know if they were saying that he was interested around World War II, or what particular decade that he had an interest in them.
All right, hold on. I want to grab something here. Switch. Hold your place, because this is something I brought up with Ross in the past in the show. Ross, we have made often very positive comments about this, and it's one of the things I truly love about the UK and the whole Isles. There just seems to be a much more a higher degree of comfortability, if that's actually a word. Maybe I created a word tonight, with paranormal and English, Irish, Celtic, Anglo-Saxon culture. I don't know how else to describe it. And I don't think it's just, it also extends into Europe as well. When I talk to the Norse people with that background, there just seems to be a much more a kinship to having phenomena go on around you that doesn't it isn't upsetting, or maybe that's not the right way to put it. It doesn't seem to strike a really strange note. It's kind of how it goes. It's part of the experience. It's part of the ride here that we're all going through. Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely true. It's part of that. I put Anglo-Saxon / Celtic phenomenon, the joint culture on the Isles of Britain, that you don't have to go very far to find yourself enmeshed in that. Right. I had a good friend of mine who, believe it or not, was a chaplain in the United States Air Force. And he'd been in Japan, and he and I were chatting one day, and he said that he was bringing his family over to England, and then they were driving to various places and heading up towards a spot just outside of Edinburgh to take part in a Burns clan gathering, because they were part of the Burns clan. And I said, oh, that's fine. Well, you must come and stay with us, or at least call in and have a cup of tea at the Shares Sharp, which at that stage was in the city of Derby, the headquarters for Rolls Royce, of course. And I said, what are your plans? He said, well, I'm picking up this large wagon, what we would call an estate car, and a family of four, we're driving over to Bath and spending the night, and then we're driving north to get to Edinburgh, and said we're taking in Stonehenge and Stratford-on-Avon, and then we'll call in for a cup of tea with you around about lunchtime, and then we'll continue on and drive to Edinburgh. And there was this silence on the end of the line from me, and he said, what's wrong? I said, well, back of the envelope calculations, the distance from Bath to Edinburgh is around about 390 miles.
Yeah.
I said, you're going southwest to northeast. You're not going to make it. There aren't, at that stage anyway, some of the motorway networks that we call them, the highways, to actually support that travel, and you're making stops in tourist spots. I said, we'll have a bedroom ready for you, or 2 bedrooms ready for you. So he said, no, we'll make it. He said, well, we'll get there just after lunch. So we prepared a casserole and put it in the oven. And there was this doorbell rang at about 7 o'clock at night. And there's this American family absolutely exhausted and bedraggled. I just pointed up the stairs. The bathroom's there on the right. Your rooms are to the left of those two. And they came down after about 10 minutes. And John said to me, "How do you live it?" He said, "It's like driving through treacle." I said, "Yeah, that's right. It's the accumulated history of thousands of years densely packed into a small island, right? And that'll ruin your travel plans. There's no way about it." And it is. I would recommend the English author, the late, great Sir Terry Pratchett, who I actually worked in the same building as at one stage. Didn't know the man, but brilliant. And if you read his stories, the Discworld series of novels, Lords and Ladies, about the elves, and the juxtaposition of the one realm with the other, and so on and so forth. It's all interwoven, and magic and everything else. And Discworld is a flattened analog for the world per se. And it's just amazing that the amount, the sheer density of history and psychic phenomena and everything else that's packed into that island.
I agree. Switch, you were going to say something and I cut you off. So rudely.
That's all right. It was just one other little thing in the report that they mentioned, and that they said in these newly released files that the intelligence chiefs in 1957 were supposed to have taken UFOs very seriously. So, and again, it doesn't give you much more information, but that's not hard to imagine, because in a earlier on, I think during the 50s in general, there still may have been a with the military and so forth, there still may have been even a little bit for the public's view, taking these things kind of seriously. Project Blue Book, of course, was up and running then, but it was just kind of later on when Blue Book kind of filtered out, and they had the Condon Committee, which was a kind of a farce, and so you kind of wonder, during this whole period of time, what's really been going on. How has officialdom, how have the military and so forth really been looking at the UFO problem, and as opposed to what the skeptics and the naysayers have promoted. So
I think the thing that's interesting about this particular article, there's a lot of things that trigger my imagination with this one, or trigger my thoughts. First of all, it kind of came out of nowhere when this article made its appearance. There wasn't anything going on around it. The next thing that you bring up is it shows a lineage going all the way back, and two very important players on the world stage. Did they or did they not? Usually when there's something that's so absolutely not true, there's usually a very swift rebuttal. There's usually something very swift that comes out and says, this didn't occur, this didn't happen. That never occurred with this article, and it doesn't occur with a lot of the others that come up. And the other part is, it just seems to punctuate all along the way that various world governments have, and in this case, you have a representation of two major world governments on this particular article, this particular piece, have been involved looking at this and been involved at controlling the information, controlling the flow, controlling the things that are going on. I think you can give a justifiable case at any point away about the morale of people, the security of people, the causing of panic, and all the things that are related on that. And here's the question I put to both of you. Do you think now, in the age that we're the age of Mack Maloney's military, are we at a point where we have we just arrived at a point that the announcement of the disclosure wouldn't be of a concern to world governments right now, or is it being used? It's a kind of a binary question. Is it being used the information being used, the possibility being used, just as another way to kind of control the conversation.
Ross, you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
Okay, from a UK perspective, many people forget that we're smaller than the state of Wyoming. It's a small place, like 700 miles from top to bottom. About 250 miles, 300 miles wide at the base of the apex. A lot of people, over 60 million people, packed in there. It's dense in social psycho terms, as you might say Isaac Asimov would say in the Foundation series.
Yep.
It's tight. The space is tight and it's hot. So you have to manage public perceptions carefully. I think it's possible that given the fact that the various social pressures being put on us, through, shall we say, medical developments and other things, and the breakup of the European Union, shall we say, it's possible that you could sneak out, shall we say, a major announcement and it not make the same impact as it would have done only, say, 18 months ago?
Yeah. That's a very good point. What do you think, Switch? What's your take?
Well, yeah, I think nowadays would almost be in some quarters it would be almost like blasé. But I've never, I think was it the Brookings report that came out years ago that said, well, we need to keep this quiet.
I believe it's RAND. I think it's RAND.
Okay.
RAND stuff.
All right. And see, I've never bought that. I think that even if decades ago we said, hey, guess what? There's aliens and they're visiting us. I think a lot of people would have taken it in stride. Some people, because of their religious convictions, would have not believed it, or believed it and believed that it might be some kind of a demonic force. Some people would embrace it. I just don't think it would have ever created the panic that they thought it would. Now, of course, if these aliens are up to no good, even if that's the case, the government is not going to admit that. Oh, by the way, these guys are up to no good, and we have no control over it. That part they would definitely keep secret. But yeah, and especially today, I just we've been saturated with pop culture, with good aliens, bad aliens. It's just it just isn't that big of an issue. But so I don't know. I see. I don't really know exactly what we're dealing with. I mean, it's not. We're not strictly dealing with an ET presence. I think there's much to John Keel, Jacques Vallée. Yeah,
let me throw a little more chum into the water here.
All right.
To just to keep this conversation with you two going. We have seen quite a few things going on in the recent reporting that have probably occurred over the last decade, if we look at. Now we are going from the time of a report of quote unquote drones or some kind of UAP going over a series of U.S. Navy ships off the coast of San Clemente. We talked about it recently on a Mack Maloney's Military X-Files. The time of that coming out is, someplace under 365 days, where we had other events that occurred with the carrier battle groups, where the time for reporting to occurrence was a number of years. I contend that some of the materials, some of the contacts that are happening is advanced technology that we are controlling. When I say we, I'm going to use the royal we. No pun intended, Ross. I'm using the royal we that someone has it. I don't think if the Chinese, the communist Chinese, or the Russians were flying over our battle groups or flying over our Navy ships, that it'd be reported and the activity would have been the same way. There's something very suspect to me about saying, hey, we don't know what this is, it's flying over. To me, that appears to be assessment drills deep dives into how close you can get to the ship, what the ship is seeing, and it's organized to a great deal. Not everybody knows about it. That doesn't surprise me in the least. But I think it also is very convenient to take a playbook out of the 50s and 60s that the Air Force and the government used, the American Air Force and government used, and I'm pretty sure it applies on the UK side with the UK government and the RAF. Throw out a lot of UFO extraterrestrial stories as part of the cover. Your thoughts?
Yeah. It's obviously a classic public relations scam. It's almost like wag the dog. It really is. How can we distract people? How can we massage the message, to mix a metaphor? Lots of alliteration there, I know. But
very classic.
Thank you so much. It really is a case in point that there is enough evidence out there. I'm sure we all agree to that. It's a case of just assembling the facts and packaging it in such a way as you do not have unintended consequences in a social manner.
Steve, what do you think?
Well, here's one thing that I can speak for myself. Whatever, if I'm wrong about this disclosure, and they are forthcoming, I am still, I'm the kind of guy that just doesn't trust the government and a lot of the stuff that they put out. I would listen to this and I would think, you know what, you're not telling us the whole truth.
There's an angle. You're pursuing an angle, right? Yes,
it's important to keep the masses happy and manipulated, and to elude something I said earlier, that if for any, one of the reasons that I think that they haven't come forth with any of this is because whatever the hell's going on, they have absolutely no power or control over it. And that's what one thing a government will not tell you is that, yeah, we've got this really, really strange stuff that's been going on since the beginning of mankind, but we have absolutely no control over it. We can't manipulate it. We can't stop it. We can't, whatever. So I guess that would be my I'd be wondering, like you say, what's the angle? What's really going on?
Switch, the government has said, though, a number of times now, and one of those recent pieces that I sent around Mack Maloney's Military X-Files staff and hosts talks about a former CIA director who is in his description is talking about, a pilot. He was a Navy admiral. And he's talking about a pilot that he knows, that his aircraft came to a stop at 40,000 feet when he came encountered with something. And he talked about this phenomenon. So there is a lot of former heads of agencies and positions of power that are coming out and saying, we don't know what this is. Now, I don't buy that either any more than you do. To me, there's an angle. As soon as you... with the track record that we have to date, come in and start confessing to me, you're confessing stuff because there's something else really big behind the curtain. I don't completely go along with that, but I think it's a difference in tone that's in what has been said that is capturing a lot of people's attention in getting us kind of thinking about this. Ross, what do you think?
I'll go with you on that. It's again, to use this phrase, it's massaging the message. You're going to have to employ a load of spin doctors to get this right, because there's a skepticism that Switch has brought up, and I don't blame him on that. There's a whole dollop of misinformation and obfuscation and other large words around this. But once you actually dig down, once you've got this tame squirrel digging furiously, he will uncover that buried nut, right? And it's going to be out there. There's no doubt about it in one way or other.
Switch, final thoughts here.
Final thoughts? I agree with Ross.
Well, you can never go wrong with a statement like that.
That's that statement was commented.
He's got the right accent for this. So that always helps. So even if it's completely wrong, you feel good about the wrong message with a good.
Well, that was part of my calculation. I said, I know if I agree with Ross, I'm home free.
Yeah, and you know that the mail is going to be good when you agree with Ross. There's no doubt about that.
That's right.
You're taking me back to my BBC Wiltshire Sound days here. No, it's quite funny.
Again, another facet of the Ross jewel has been uncovered here with his BBC background. Masters at presenting the information. But let me throw one last piece into this. And it goes back to what I was talking about, what I'm going to affectionately refer to as the Isles, England, Scotland, Ireland, and the associated even smaller islands around it.
Don't forget Wales. My sister
and Wales. Pardon me. I almost made a horrible error by saying, well, that's part of England. But come on, Commander Cobra, what is wrong with you? So that will generate mail. That will generate some interest. Here's my point. And especially when you do consider Wales. We have, and Switch over the years has shared many, many interesting accounts and stories. You have a part of the globe that has had some of the most interesting intersection of cultures. You had what has been attributed to many historians, the saving of the Western civilization record because of the monks in Ireland being able to maintain the records that were not destroyed. You have Romans, Saxons, Norse that have all intersected. The French from the mainland centuries later on the Norman side. It's, to me, one of the most fantastic kind of outcomes when you look at all, there's much tragedy there. There's much human experience there. And there seems to be a very strong spiritual connection to all of this, to the entire paranormal. Ross, your thought? Oh, Switch, you first. I
sign it said River Avon. Sorry.
No, I was just thinking when you mentioned Wales. Wales is an incredible hotspot for high strangeness activity. We've done some on Mack's show. The Sunderland family in northeast Wales had a whole series of bizarre events, and they were some of them seemed to be physical, where they interacted with these entities. Others were more in a dream state. One of the little boy. I can't think of his name, but after a couple of years, they were talking to the other children, and they put him under regressive hypnosis. That had kind of forgotten about him because he didn't say anything. The aliens he drew looked exactly, Jenny Randles found out, like the Kelly Hopkinsville aliens. So, and then there was the Dovid in the Southwest a few years before. It's just phenomenal, the activity that's going on there.
Well, in 1974, the Bowen Mountains incident in Merionethshire in Wales. That was incredible. The loud noises, bright lights, and even suggestions that there was a crash, almost a la Roswell, And so some tabloids jokingly referred to it as the Ross Welsh incident. There's so much there in Wales. And I was saying this multi-layer things. I drove over the River Avon. Do you know what the word for a river is in Welsh? Afon. So I drove over the river. It's multi-layered language. There's a place, I think, in Sussex. It's called Pen Ten Hill, right? Pen and ten are two ancient British and Saxon words for hill. So you've just gone by the hill. Yeah. So it's the way that the cultures is so multi-layered and the experiences are too. And hopefully the release of any information that is needed will be dealt with sensitively.
And I just hope it comes out forthcoming. But as I've said in the past, I don't need external confirmation for what I've concluded and what I believe. And that brings us really to the end of a most interesting Mack Maloney's Military X-Files show. Gentlemen, I thank you very much. My guests with me, or my guest with us right now, I should say, is Ross Sharp, and everyone knows Ross and is beloved on this program. Thank you, Ross, for joining us tonight.
A great pleasure as always.
Great to be back with you, Ross.
And
John,
you,
Switch. I enjoy working with you.
And we want to throw out the salute to the earlier part of the show with John Lilley, director and managing director, I should say, and chairman of the People's Mosquito, and Bill Ramsey, the director of operations. It was great first half of the show having them on. Always want to make sure we round the horn here with important people that we'd like, an organization we'd like to recognize, and I really want to make a big effort on Homes for Our Troops. It is probably one of the best of the veteran-based organizations that are out there building purposefully built homes for the veterans to meet their needs and challenges that they have because of the result of their time in service in the military. It's a tremendous organization because when you donate to them, more than 80% is going into the actual building of the home for our troops and their families. So when they're handed the keys, they're handed free and clear that structure. And it's a structure that's purposely built, that supports them. And it really is, to me, one of the greatest organizations out there. We've had them on the show. I should say Mack has had them on the show. And they're wonderful folks. And I'm in touch with them quite a bit by email and trying to support their different programs. Homes for Our Troops. We have Sweetwater's Donuts, the official donut of the Mack Maloney Military X-Files. And we are always cooking up something with them, no pun intended. And I am going to put one final throw to Parnon Estates. That's Parnon Estates, ESTATES.com. They are hopefully going to become the official olive oil, Greek olive oil, true Greek olive oil of the Mack Maloney Military X-Files. We'll see how that works out over the coming weeks and months. Gentlemen, and to all, it's been a tremendous evening. And I'm getting ready to give the signal to break the formation. And I can't wait for the big debrief with Juan-Juan and Mack, of course, when we all get together to hear how we did and see if we get a chance to do another mission, Switch.
Yes, and find out all about their junket.
Well, our secret mission, as most of us prefer to use, junket has such a ugly connotation to it that we don't want to. So for everybody at Mack Maloney's Military X-Files and our fantastic array of personalities that were with us tonight, I thank you very much for joining. Be safe, be well, and
bye-bye.
Bye.